of claim of anything else, she also raised the issue of those warrants. Now there is a joinder. Now the court has subject matter jurisdiction. And it ain't going to go away. So Victoria keeps saying, no, that's a non-issue because they haven't come back with a proof claim. That is relevant. Isn't that just like our other buddy who went into court and instead of doing a full acceptance of the draft, he did a conditional acceptance on proof of claim that they produced some charge? And you know the bankrupt public, drawer of the draft, can't produce a charge. So therefore, it's a standoff, not a set-off, and the court will proceed to collect the funds from a dishonorable endorser. Do you have a comment or a question?
I was thinking, how about, shouldn't have been something like, I'm sorry, must have made a mistake during that time frame. I'd like to correct that.
And cancellation. Going on
for
to
value.
Something else is appropriate. That's exactly what should be good.
Accept it for value and return it. And
oh, yeah.
Let's go on with the next issue.
Telling her that, but hey, no. It's not in there because they haven't proved it. Okay? Now, finally, what happened here about a week and a half ago is I suggested strongly to Victoria that she stop all this crap about her conditional acceptances of these claims, because she kept saying, well, I did an acceptance and they're supposed to have me out of here in 72 hours. I'm going, you didn't do an acceptance, you did a conditional acceptance. So she got some paperwork in there with a full acceptance, with a request to settle and close by way of offset and adjustment and whatever. And what was very interesting, did I talk last week about this concept that her competency hearing was really a competency hearing for the attorney instead of for her? Okay. Some people are saying yes. And the people that were saying no, the people that weren't here are asleep. Okay, so the competency hearing is one really for the lawyer versus you, the endorser. Okay? Now, look what happens on almost all of these Patriot criminal proceedings. Sooner or later, there's going to be the allegation that the defendant is incompetent and therefore has to go to a hearing. And the reason that all these incompetency hearings are coming out is because the endorser for the defendant, i.e. the living soul, doesn't accept and return the charging instruments, because that's the only thing a competent person can do. Does everybody see that? If you don't accept it and return it, you can't possibly be competent, because you're in a dishonor, which by definition is incompetency, which is basically when they got to throw a lawyer or attorney on you because they've got to give an attorney to someone that's incompetent. So when they start throwing an attorney in your direction, it's either as a test or already they're telling you you're incompetent because you didn't accept and return the draft. Do you want to make a comment?
In Scripture, it talks about responsibility, about we have to be responsible for our actions. We are responsible for
it also says agree with your opponent before you go to court, accept him in return, and cover what your opponent's looking for.
If you've made a mistake, you have to correct your mistake.
Absolutely. Okay, so now what happens is all of these judges are trying to tell these patriots that we believe you're incompetent because we don't see the proper procedure coming out of you. So we're going to send you off for a mental competency exam. And in fact, in Victoria's case, her own attorney moved the court for the competency hearing. It came out of her attorney. Now, Victoria keeps telling me over and 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 over again that her attorney ain't helping her. Hello, he sent you for a competency exam. What did you understand about that? Now, what happened is she went in to the psych and she explained to the psych that she had to basically accept and return the thing to settle the case. And of course, the psych didn't know an awful lot about legal things, but he became very intrigued with the competency of her ability to articulate her situation with the psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist wrote a glowing report that she's not only mentally competent, but she's quite brilliant and articulate. And that went back to the court. Now, when Victoria went in for a hearing on competency, the night before, so I told Victoria, look, this competency hearing is not about your competency, it's about your lawyer's competency. Because if you allow him to keep representing you in the public, then you're deemed to be incompetent. And so if he's competent to represent you, you're incompetent. But if you're competent to instruct him as to what he's supposed to do and he does it, then he's competent because he's your agent doing what you told him to do. So they tell you this is a competency hearing for you, but it's really a competency hearing for your agent, your lawyer, to see whether he truly represents you in honor or not. So I said, when you get into the hearing, it is imperative that before your attorney represents the defendant on the public side without the court hearing from you as to your wishes, and you allow that to go forward, the game's over, you're incompetent, it's on the public side, you're going down. So, she goes into the hearing, and when she gets into the hearing, she's got her hand up so that the judge will acknowledge her. Now understand this, as long as you've got an attorney, the court can't see you. See, the court is a military tribunal. And under the rules of the military, you've got to follow the customs and practices of the chain of command. And if you circumvent the chain of command, whatever you do will not appear. It'll be like it never happened. So if you try to talk to the judge in the court, the general, even if you get words out of your mouth, it will mean nothing because it's failed to come through the proper chain of command. So you must proceed through your attorney, which is your agent in the military, in order to inform the court. Now that's the rub because, see, your attorney has been ordered by you, i.e. draft, you requested that he do certain things, and your attorney is the drawee, you are the drawer of your request to your agent to represent you in the court as the endorser, who's going to pay the debt of the drawee defendant strawman. And your attorney, being the drawee of your draft, has not accepted and returned it and carried out the instructions. So your attorney is in a dishonor, and now he is the debtor. And if he's the debtor, he can no longer be your agent. But it's not automatic. You have to bring notice to the military that you tried to go through the chain of command, and one of the officers is not in honor carrying out his duty. And your first job is to get the court, i.e. the higher officer, to recognize that you've got a problem with the chain of command. And you have to get the court to basically take the obstructing officer out of the chain of command so that they can hear the correct information coming up channels. You can't give them the information until the chain of command first has notice to take public notice that the party that was supposed to bring on the further orders is in dishonor. And A, you got to replace him, or B, you got to listen to me now. And if you get the court to recognize that, then you can proceed to tell the court what it is you want to tell them. But your problem in that hearing is not even to go in there and tell them you're competent. You can't testify for yourself. And the problem is the officer above you is obstructing the chain of command. You've got to get the tribunal to recognize that obstruction. If they recognize that, then you've got to move the chain of command to input the information that he was instructing so that they could deal with it. You understand what I was telling her she needed to do? Now, she gets up to the court and she's got her hand up. And the judge is saying something to her attorney that she wants something, and the court isn't recognizing her. And so her attorney goes over, what do you want? And she basically goes, you've dishonored everything I've done here today, and you can't speak for me anymore, and I want to speak to the court. And her attorney basically goes, shut up. We've already stipulated that you're competent. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold it. This was supposed to be a hearing to determine competency. Okay? Her attorney, so to speak, requests the court to get a competency exam, which they do through the state psychiatrist, which has glowing report of how brilliant, smart, and competent this woman is. So what is her attorney that asked for the competency going to do? Is he going to dishonor their own witness? On the other hand, see, they must be recording what Victoria and I are talking about. And I said to Victoria, you want to interfere before the hearing is basically decided. And so what they did is they just did a surprise. They stipulated without even a hearing that she's competent so that it was all over. So she didn't have the opportunity to intercede. And her attorney says, be quiet. We've already stipulated you're competent. And Victoria's going, you're not doing anything I'm asking you to do. I want you out of there. And the judge says something about like, I've heard that we may have a challenge to whether or not the defendant wants to have the attorney. And he says to the prosecutor, I think it's a Marston motion hearing, something like that. And you can't be here for that. It doesn't involve you. Is there anything else the plaintiff needs? And the plaintiff's going, well, Your Honor, we were going to have witnesses for the trial, but they can't show up, and the first time they can be here now is May 6th. The judge says, okay, we'll set the trial for May 6th. Is there anything else? No. Okay, you get out of here. And then the judge says to Victoria, you may speak. Do you want this attorney to represent you? And Victoria goes, well, Your Honor, I have to ask this attorney some questions first before I can determine. Because she didn't want to testify. She wants to ask questions of the attorney so that he'll witness the dishonor. So based on his testimony in front of the court, through his dishonor, she can petition the court to do what the court needs to do without motioning the court, without testifying. And the judge goes, no, we're not going to have no examination. You answer my question. Do you want this attorney to represent you? And Victoria's bound and determined she's not going to testify, that she's, discreetly going, I conditionally accept that, but, and then on, and I got to ask the question. The judge says, I'm the judge here. You'll answer the questions, not ask the questions. And so Victoria's going, well, I'm not going to testify. I don't want to be the debtor. So she stayed quiet. And the judge says, fine. Says, okay, trial will be on May 6th then. This hearing's adjourned. Okay, now, I didn't tell you something that Victoria's attorney told her. He said, shut up. I went to talk with the judge. And if you'll plead guilty, there will be no jail time after the trial. What just happened? Wait a second. This attorney went to see the judge? Private. Off the record. Judge already gave a judgment in private? What's going on here? Well, you see, she finally got the draft of acceptance out to everybody like I told her to do to begin with, without it being conditional. And it was a private letter rogatory to her public attorney, and private copies were sent to the judge, the clerk, the prosecutor. And what was in the private letter rogatory? I authorize you to do this for me, to settle and close this matter, no cost to me on bonds or anything, by way of the exemption, and discharge the title to me at the conclusion. What did her attorney just tell her at this hearing? I went out and I negotiated, and this is going to be the settlement. Shut up. Now the judge is up there and going, I'm not going to allow you to interrogate your lawyer or anything. Do you want to keep him or don't you? Now thank God she didn't fire him. He already told her he carried everything out. You understand what I'm telling you? She gets back into the jail cell. She calls me the next morning and said, boy, I don't know what went on out there, but... And then she's telling me all that, and I'm starting to laugh, and I'm going, my God, it sounds like you got the settlement. He's carrying out everything you want. What was the first words out of her mouth? Why do we have to wait 3 weeks before I get the settlement? I'm going, what do you want to argue this thing? What do you want to demonstrate some more dishonor? Go ahead and argue it and see how long you're in for then. I said, chill. And now she's out, well, I got to put him under some protests and some other things just in case and whatever. And I'm going, oh my God. You do simple draft. I said, look, these people are on the public side. They got to put on a really big shoe. They can't just let you out of there when you write one stinking letter. I said, if they did that, everybody'd be out of there. So I have no clue what she's doing. But I get calls all the time going, well, why isn't it working? And I said, what isn't working? Well, here she is. She's testing all this stuff. She knows how to teach it. Why isn't it working? Ain't she doing acceptance? And I'm going, well, yeah, on again, off again, on again, off again, win some, lose them. I said, keeps bouncing back and forth. She keeps wanting to bring in arguments and conditional acceptances. I said, damn, if she only let it lie, I bet you she'll be out of there after May 6th. But I have no clue where it's going to go because she keeps trying, well, if I can get out of there on May 6th, why can't I get out of there tomorrow? I'm going, well, you know, have at it, whatever turns your boat on. But anyway, that's the latest and the greatest on what's happening with Victoria right now. And I was just blown away. I go, here is this attorney who keeps telling every one of her friends on the outside he hasn't got a clue of what this commercial process is all about. He doesn't know what it means. It's confusing. He's doing his best to defend her. That's all he's going to do. This whole stuff is just a bunch of hogwash to him. And then Victoria says, my attorney told me I met with the judge. I bet that was privately, ex parte, wasn't it? Did that violate just about every public rule of court procedure? Now, why do you think he's in there ex parte, violating all the public rules of court, speaking to the judge? Why is that? Yes, he is. That he's not violating the rules. Why isn't he violating the rules? He's representing the creditor who's going to pay it and close it. And the creditor's in charge, which is Victoria if she only gets a clue. You understand how incredible this is? What do you think he's going to come out and hug you and go, oh boy, yeah, you really figured this out, didn't you? Well, okay, let me go get the settlement. You'll be out tomorrow. Hello? That ain't the way it's going to happen. If you talk to that guy today, he will tell you he doesn't have a clue what it is anybody's talking about. But I'll tell you one thing, everybody was put on notice privately, weren't they? And everybody in that case knows who the creditor is on the private side. And that's what's controlling that case. So go do likewise as long as you have honor and can do it. Yeah.
Does the attorney work in dual capacity?
Sure. He's on the public side for a really big shoe, and he's on the private side to carry out the draft. He doesn't want to be in dishonor. See, the judge already knew that if he didn't do what he was told to do, he was going to be in dishonor. Okay, so Victoria's been in there darn close to 2 months, probably 7, 8 weeks.
He's an agent, though, right?
Well, sure, he's an agent of the public, but he's also been drafted to be an agent of the private when he got the proper document.
So he's acting in his dual capacity.
Absolutely. But on the private side, he's carrying out the draft unless you do something to dishonor it. And if she would have fired his ass, that would have been the dishonor right there. You understand? Remember what the Matrix says, you screw up in the public, you die in the private. And when you die, you have no remedy. So she did everything right, at least while she was in the court. So, you know, this whole thing is a test. What are you going to be able to do? Are you going to be able to resolve this without going to war against these people? Now, I know there's a lot of patriots out there that are teaching many, many different processes, and that's all fine. But what we're showing you is probably about the highest level of commercial process, which is what these people are absolutely doing in terms of UCC, commercial practice to raise the revenue to keep the state going. That's exactly what's happening here. Now, when the people inside Iraq go down and sign up to be the bank in order to allow the IMF to reinvigorate their own nation, then who will end up being the recipients of the new level of prosperity that comes over the land? The inhabitants of Iraq. The wealth will be created there, the buildings, the improved oil wells. Certainly the IMF will, as trustees, be monitoring and running the system. But if you go back into the Old Testament, probably in Jeremiah or Isaiah, It said, when the Father puts you into a captivity, what are you and your family supposed to do? Serve and work hard and prosper and grow as a captive people. Like Daniel did and like the children of Israel did in Egypt. They prospered and grew so big that the Egyptians were scared of them being taken over from internally. Your job is not to fight the IMF. Let them be the trustees. You are the bankers, in fact. They only are the bankers as the shadow to invoke your capacity to do this. You see, the people in Iraq have nothing to fear about an honorable occupying foreign army unless they rebel against that foreign army. Isn't that what the Scripture said of the children of Israel? That the good figs are the ones that are serving in the captivity and they're prospering and growing rich. The bad figs are the patriot rebels that are fighting the IMF and the government. It's just the opposite of what you've been led to believe when you're under a captivity. Okay? So the Lord will bless the land of Babylon and the people therein if they cooperate with honorable occupation army. Yes?
If the IMF is so honorable, why are...
I didn't say they were honorable. I said they're trustees.
Well, at any rate, it seems like the word is out that they go in and help with the loans. They put forth plans that are unworkable.
Why are they unworkable?
Because they want the countries to default so they can end up owning all of the mineral rights under the soil.
Look, the Federal Reserve has laid loans on every people in this country. The people in this country can go down the tubes, pay usury, and try to work them off on the public side, or they can discharge all the loans by way of their exemption. The bankers did not prohibit the use of an exemption.
But at this point, they have the United Nations biosphere on our national parks, and all kinds of our national resources are now technically being owned by the UN, and I don't think it's because of honorable agents.
It's because of the dishonorable people. The people didn't pay off their loans with the exemption. If they had, they wouldn't have had to seize the assets.
They certainly didn't instruct us to do that.
Why should the slave instruct the master? Number one. Number two, don't blame the slave. Go home and read Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. 26 is gospel. 28 is live forever. In the book of Deuteronomy, the word Deuteronomy means the second law. It's a restatement, just in case you missed it the first time. And what you're going to miss if you don't read it is that you're responsible for what happened to you because the Father laid it on you because you didn't follow His law. If you try to pay it off with open checks, you're in usury, you're a violation of the law. If you paid it off with the exemption, there would be no debt. The IMF, the UN, the World Bank, and the trustees would not have to foreclose upon you. And you can go either way, just like in the court. You can go either way. Are you going to tell me the judges in the court are evil? You can go into the court and accept their draft and return it, you're the creditor. You go in the court and argue the facts, you're the debtor. You've got free will to play that game any way you want. The situation and the reality is everybody mostly plays it wrong. And even when they try to get it right, they still screw it up. We all need to pray for Victoria. She's trying so desperately to do it right, but she has that doubt. She wants to keep coming back and charging the other side just in case she didn't quite get it right, and that's a dishonor. You can't play it both ways. You're either the creditor or you're the debtor. Her attorneys yelled at her, "Shut up!" How many times do you want me to win your case for you when you're doing it right? Is she going to listen to the attorney or presume that he's off in Never Never Land screwing up her case? Well, if you know how to do it right and be honorable. You can go either way, left or right. It's up to you. But if you don't even know there's a split in the path, chances are you don't know there's even two ways of doing it. And you just go the way of everybody else, which is usually the wrong way. Okay? See, it could be a blessing to that land, or it could be a curse to that land. And that's exactly what the prophet said in the Old Testament. If the children of Israel will accept the captivity as a punishment for the wrong they did, the Lord will turn it into a blessing for them. And they will prosper in the captivity. And if they rebel against the agent of the Father who sent Babylon there, or Assyria, or Egypt, or whoever it was, or Rome, and you rebel against God's agents, then it will not go well for you. Patriotism wants to fight for liberty. There is no nation in this world that is at liberty today. They're all in a captivity. The issue is, do you want to be in that captivity under the nations? Or do you want to be somewhat different, be honorable to the Lord and to the trustees, the agent the Father put here, come out of that captivity and live free? It's up to you. Okay? No meeting next week. We'll be here, God willing, in 2 weeks.